There's some news that the US government may be selling a bunch of Bitcoin. This video is a part 2 to my previous video from 7 days ago. What will happen if the US government announces a strategic Bitcoin reserve? And in that video, I explained quite a few concepts. For example, one of the more important ones was price is determined at the margin and how Bitcoin runs out at every single price. Right now, we're going through the complete opposite of the scenario that I described in this video here. So after this video is done, go ahead and watch that video. I'll link it somewhere here, maybe in the description or something. Let's get started. The first thing that you need to know here is that the US government owns almost 200,000 Bitcoin, and the majority of it was confiscated from people who ran the Silk Road darknet marketplace. So what they were doing on this marketplace was they were selling things that weren't legal, things that you wouldn't find in a department store, let's say weapons, drugs, all these different things. So these people had a marketplace where you could buy those things with Bitcoin. And the US government said, this is not something we want you to do. So they went in and confiscated all of their Bitcoin. A lot of people think that if the US government were to sell all of its Bitcoin, what would happen is that the price would crash. And this makes perfect sense because you can see here, this is a order book for Bitcoin. At $95,000, there are 33 Bitcoin available. At 94,900, there are 261 Bitcoin available in total. You can see the numbers here. If you go to coinglass.com/merge/BTC-USD, maybe I'll link this in the description below as well. But you can see how much Bitcoin is available to be bought at any of these prices. Keep in mind that not all of this is real. Sometimes what whales do is they create a wall of either buys or sells, and they get people to think that that's where the price is going. Whatever the market dynamics are, what you see here is how much Bitcoin is being demanded right now. So in total, for Bitcoin to drop $10,000, 6,130 Bitcoin will have to be sold. Now keep in mind again, this is going to constantly be changing as the buyers purchase their Bitcoin, the amount of Bitcoin available will decrease, and as sellers sell their Bitcoin, demand will be fulfilled. This is the opposite side of the order book. We can see here at $95,100, there are 92 Bitcoin available for sale. At $95,200, there are 297 Bitcoin available for sale. This last column shows you how much Bitcoin are available in total up until a $105,000 Bitcoin. So if you add up all of the individual quantities at every price, these are the numbers that you get. So just let me connect the dots here. If somebody wanted to go on OKX, Binance, BitMEX, and Bybit, these are the exchanges that this data is coming from. If they were to go on those exchanges and they were to buy 4,064 Bitcoin, it keeps changing. But if they were to buy 4,000 Bitcoin, Bitcoin's price would bump up to $105,000. And on the other side of it, they would have to sell 6,100 Bitcoin for it to drop to $85,100. And just to make my point a little clearer here, I brought some data over from the order book to Microsoft Excel, and you can see here, as the price rises, there is less Bitcoin available to be bought. We can see with the color scale that I added at, let's say, for example, $104,900, there's only $101,000 worth of Bitcoin available to be bought. Of course, these numbers are going to change as we go closer and closer to those prices. More and more people will be willing to sell their Bitcoin, but Bitcoin runs out at every single price. The people who are willing to sell their Bitcoin at $94,900 will eventually run out. There will no longer be Bitcoin available at that price. So let's say, for example, some whale comes in and they say that they want to buy as much Bitcoin as possible, and they don't care about going through OTC desks, going to a person who can connect buyers and sellers who want to buy and sell massive amounts of Bitcoin. What they say is that they want to just buy it off the exchanges, and their goal is to make everybody panic. And what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and buy $400 million worth of Bitcoin. They're going to accumulate 4,113 Bitcoin, and they're going to bump the price up. They're going to make everybody think that this is it. The mass adoption is coming. Bitcoin's price is going to start rising. So what's going to happen is they're going to put in an order for $400 million worth of Bitcoin. They're going to clear every single one of these orders, all of this Bitcoin that's available to be bought. This is how markets are made. This is how prices are determined. When people tell you, oh, the traders are manipulating Bitcoin, whales are manipulating Bitcoin's price. This is what they mean. So what they mean is that people are coming in and they're buying a bunch of Bitcoin or they're selling a bunch of Bitcoin. So to bring Bitcoin's price up from $94,900 to $104,900, you would need $400 million worth of buying pressure. On the other hand, to bring Bitcoin's price down by $10,000, you would need, you can see here, $577 million worth of buying pressure. So the amount of money required to bring Bitcoin's price down by $10,000 is a lot higher than the amount of money required to bring Bitcoin's price up by $10,000. The reason why this is so important is because there are a lot more buyers for Bitcoin than there are sellers. Almost nobody on earth has an allocation to Bitcoin. So naturally, everybody on earth could get exposure to Bitcoin and they can buy Bitcoin. But almost nobody on earth, like I said, has exposure, meaning that there are a finite number of sellers who are willing to sell their Bitcoin. And eventually, those sellers run out of Bitcoin. If we go back to this article here, we can see that the US is cleared to sell $6.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Will it crash Bitcoin's price? Yes, in the short term, it will. That's if they sell the Bitcoin at the market. If they were to use an OTC desk, which I'm almost guaranteeing that they will, if they sell this Bitcoin, what they're going to do is they're going to take the orders off the market. So the market won't be impacted at all. What they're going to do is, let's say Bitcoin's price right now is at $94,900. They're going to have an auction. So they're going to set an auction for anybody who wants to buy the Bitcoin. And these buyers will be able to give offers for how much they want to pay for a certain amount of Bitcoin. So let's say, for example, a massive buyer comes in and they say they want to buy $6.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Let's say Apple says they want to buy $6.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. They can go in, they can put in an offer to buy this Bitcoin either at the market price or they can buy it a little bit higher, a little bit lower. I don't know how that would work, but they can go ahead and buy this Bitcoin. On the other hand, if Apple wanted to buy $6.5 billion worth of Bitcoin at the market, they would be paying a lot more. So what they would have to do is they would have to bid based on whatever the market price is, and they would bring the price up. So we can see on that spreadsheet that there was only $400 million worth of Bitcoin available up until $105,000. As the price goes up, fewer and fewer Bitcoin are available to be bought because the people who hold it become even more convicted. The people who hold Bitcoin want to hold it even more because they think that the price will go up even more. So we can see here that the US government has about 200,000 Bitcoin. If they sell their Bitcoin, all they're doing is they're redistributing to other people. There are going to be people who buy 1 Bitcoin, 0.5 Bitcoin, 0.2 Bitcoin, 0.01 Bitcoin, whatever they want to buy. If the price goes down, they're going to be able to buy it. If the US government wants to sell all of this Bitcoin, that's a good thing for the market because it just means that Bitcoin is being redistributed from these massive players who basically can control the market to people who just want to hold because they think Bitcoin is the best asset in the world. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. And let's say the US government says that they want to sell this Bitcoin, they bring the price down, and then they want to buy it back. They're going to be paying a lot more to get back the exact same amount of Bitcoin. If you've been paying attention to my content for a while, or if you've been paying attention to the news, you know that Germany sold 50,000 Bitcoin for about $50,000 to $54,000 in July of 2024. They received $2.7 billion for that Bitcoin. If Germany wanted to buy back that same amount of Bitcoin today, it would cost them $4.75 billion, which is a loss of $2.05 billion. But keep in mind that they wouldn't be able to buy back all 50,000 Bitcoin for $95,000. Like I said, on that order book, you see that if they were to start buying, the price is going to get bumped up because, again, Bitcoin runs out at every single price. There are certain sellers who are willing to give away their Bitcoin for $95,000, but eventually those sellers will run out. And then Germany will have to pay a little bit more for their Bitcoin. Then they'll have to pay a little bit more. If Germany were to go ahead and try to buy 50,000 Bitcoin, they're probably going to pay a lot more than $4.75 billion. At this current price, Germany would be taking a loss of $2.05 billion. So let's say that their average purchase price works out to be $1 million. They're going to have paid $47.3 billion more than they received for the sale in the first place. If their average price works out to be $10 million, now keep in mind that it depends on when they go back to buying this Bitcoin, or if they ever do buy this Bitcoin, they're going to be paying 497 billion more dollars than they received in the proceeds of their sale. If their average price turns out to be $100 million, let's say they finally realize how Bitcoin works in 2040, 2050, and they want to buy back that 50,000 Bitcoin, they're going to be paying $5 trillion for that 50,000 Bitcoin. They're going to have a loss of $4.997 trillion. So this sale that they made for $2.7 billion is just a rounding error in how much it would actually cost them to accumulate that Bitcoin again. So let's say the US government does the exact same thing. They sell 69,370 Bitcoin for $95,000 each. They would get about $7 billion in proceeds. Depending on when they figure it out and depending on their average price, they would have paid a lot more money to get back the exact same amount of Bitcoin because sellers run out at every single price. People are figuring out that the US dollar is fake money. The wealthiest people on earth don't want US dollars. Even the US government is in debt for $36 trillion. They're shorting their own money. So it really doesn't make any sense for them to sell this 69,370 Bitcoin for $7 billion. It doesn't make a difference to their overall balance sheet. If we take a look at the US debt clock, we can see that the US government is spending a lot more money than it's going to get in proceeds from their Bitcoin sale. So we can see here right now the US government is spending about $7 trillion a year. They have a deficit of $2 trillion a year. What that means is that the US government is receiving $5 trillion in tax revenue and they're spending $7 trillion. So they're overspending by $2 trillion. That $7 billion sale makes no difference if the US government is going to continue spending recklessly. We can see here some of their largest budget items: Medicare and Medicaid, $1.7 trillion, Social Security, $1.5 trillion, defense and war, almost $1 trillion, and the interest on this debt is almost $1 trillion on its own. I personally don't see it to be a problem if the US government were to sell their Bitcoin because it just means that the price will come down and the people who want to buy more will be able to buy more at lower and lower prices. This is just a way to redistribute the US government's Bitcoin holdings at a discount. I think if you're panicking and selling right now, you're making the worst decision of your life because even if this Bitcoin is sold, the price will eventually come back up. I don't personally think that this Bitcoin is going to be sold. Trump is going to be inaugurated in about 10 days, and he's pro-Bitcoin. I don't personally think that the Biden administration is going to be able to make the sale for this 70,000 Bitcoin in the next 10 days. And if Trump comes into office, they're definitely not going to be able to sell. If they do, though, all that's happening is that you're getting a discount in Bitcoin's price. The purchasing power of your labor increases. So let's say you're making $30 an hour, Bitcoin's price drops 50%. All that's happening is you can buy more Bitcoin with your labor. The purchasing power of your savings also increases. So if you have a lot of US dollars set aside, you can use those US dollars to buy more Bitcoin. This also means that the price of housing in terms of Bitcoin is going to increase. So let's say you have a rental property and you've been planning to sell it for a while. What you're going to see is that you're going to have an opportunity to sell this rental property at a higher price. Now, keep in mind that I don't suggest waiting for this to happen. I personally do think that either the sale has already been completed or the sale is going to take place on an OTC desk where big buyers and big sellers come together and it has no impact on the market price. So it really won't change anything for Bitcoin's market. If you're selling your Bitcoin right now in anticipation of lower prices, you're gambling. We're going to see a massive 2025. We're probably going to see the price going much, much higher than where it is today. And if that happens and you sell your Bitcoin and the price never comes back down to $50, $60, $70,000, you're not going to be able to buy back your Bitcoin and you're going to lose out on this opportunity to build generational wealth when it was probably the easiest one that you're ever going to have.